Wide they flung the massive portals, led the prisoner forth to die. All his bright and light before him, 'neath the darkening English sky. Bessie came with flying footsteps, eyes aglow with love light sweet. Kneeling on the turf beside him, laid his pardon at his feet. In his brave, strong arms he clasped her, kissed the face upturned and white, whispered, "Darling, you have saved me. Curfew will not ring tonight."
Thank you, Susan, for that rousing recitation of "A curfew must not ring tonight." Next up in our talent show are contestants Henrietta and Louisa Beeks, singing "Under the Bamboo Tree." Down in the jungles lived a maid, a royal blood who dust to shame. A marked impression once she made upon a Zulu from Malabulu. And every morning he would be down underneath a bamboo tree, awaiting there his love to see, and then to her he'd sing. If you like me like I like you, and we like both the same, I like to say this very day, I like to change your name. 'Cause I love you and love you true, and if you love me, one live is two, two live is one, under the bamboo tree.
Oh, thank you, girls. That was delightful. Now we have Allegra Jones singing "New York, New York." Evelyn, Allegra. Oh. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York.
We interrupt this message to bring you the Maidens of Green Gables.
Greetings and salutations from the Maidens of Green Gables, and from Sydney, our cat, who is here joining us this week. Henry, the one who scratched me, is not here this week. He is outside. And Sydney has
replaced him.
Yes.
Though he's actually quite more frisky than the other one. But anyways, we have high hopes.
Yes. Anyway, how are you all this week? You're very quiet. Too quiet, in fact. We'll have to become a bit more chatty in the comment section. Otherwise, we might feel as if we're being left all alone in this read loud. Let us all go away, and maybe they won't notice. They're still reading to themselves.
Yes, we've been. We realized yesterday, Saturday evening, that our friends have an annual cookie exchange coming up. So we've been delving into our creativity and figuring out what we're going to bring.
And they have a contest on the cookies you bring. Every family is supposed to bring, or every contestant is supposed to bring 7 dozen cookies, and you are
judged on your packaging, on the taste of your cookie, and on your presentation, or on the decoration.
How the cookie looks.
How the cookie looks. So they're judged. There's a few prizes, and then for the best packaging, best taste, best decoration, and then every family brings home 1 dozen from.
Actually, it brings home 7 dozen cookies. Because,
do they bring? Okay,
or
yeah.
6 dozen cookies because you bring 1 dozen to share, and then the 7 dozen you're number 1, so then you get 1 dozen from the next 6 people, and then so you get number 2s, 3s, 4s, up to.
Yeah. So you bring 1 to share, and then you get to bring 6 different kinds of cookies home from everyone else's selections that they brought.
So the idea is so that you have lots of cookies before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So to go into the holiday, but you need more sweets, but it's still fun. So last year, dear Catherine took home 2 prizes for presentation and decoration. So we are scheming this year to continue our
Winning streak.
successful run. And
Yep.
since we brought home, what was it?
We brought home
6 what was it, like?
Mama, Grace, and I all entered last year, so collectively we brought
18 dozen cookies home.
no. Well,
Yes.
we also brought that many, and then we took that many home.
Yes.
We took a lot there, and we took a lot
We
home.
made like 3 trips out the door. I felt like we were like looting something.
I really did.
But so we're gonna combine forces this year, so we don't bring home that many because we really don't.
Yes.
need that many.
So far, we are disagreeing on what we shall bring.
So what's new?
I have a wonderful idea, but Grace will not see
I see
the light.
you. I have my own light to see.
I want to make these little mini cookie wedding cakes that I've seen. And anyways, that's what I want to make. And I found this packaging where you take a decorative piece of cardstock and you fold it up, and then you put, that's your bottom, and then you put the cup on top of that and tie it with ribbon and poking holes and everything. And then you tie it to the top. It's very confusing the way I'm saying it, but we'll have to take a picture if Grace does see the light, and we decide to do that. But that's my idea. And then we top it all off with. We top it all off. We put, as you tie the ribbon on the top of the little tiny package with your mini cake inside, you put a tag on it that says the type of cookie and say remember the date, like someone was getting married that day, and make it look like a party favor. That would be the theme. And you have a little tag that would say, some imaginary initials, somebody. Yeah.
So that's her idea. My idea, I saw these lovely little, they're called love letters, and they look like, you fold them to look like an envelope.
The cookie.
And they're tiny, at least the picture looked tiny. And so I thought we could make a cardstock mailbox, and then stick the cookies inside the mailbox, and that's your packaging. It all goes with the theme.
It was very cute.
But I think the mailbox will be either too hard to make,
It didn't look that hard.
or you take a regular cookie and decorate it to look like a letter with icing on it. But see, the thing is, Catherine is more about decorating, and I'm wanting to do more about taste, I guess. But the problem is, most tasting cookies aren't like the kind you can just like roll out and cut shapes out of, which is kind of what she would need, I think. So,
Not necessarily. Even if they were drop cookies, as long as you flatten the tops, that's all I need.
I guess.
Mhm.
Anyways, so I tested out 2 kinds. I made gingerbread because just, gingerbread is awesome, and I haven't had it in years. So I made gingerbread, and that's in the fridge overnight. And then I made something. Oh, what would it be? Something in. It's like the bow something in cookies, which were very good, but they're also rather bland. But I really liked them. They didn't taste good.
They're very good, but they're very bland.
They're actually really good. I really like them. They're like not
They're lightly
too
sweet.
They're
Lightly
like more like a biscuit.
A
then-
scone.
They're biscuit. Yeah, they're very good. They're just bland, so
Maybe-
not prize winning.
Should put like some cream cheese or whipped cream, clotted cream, something other on top.
No, you're a cookie.
Not a cake.
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying, like a scone, you put clotted cream on top of a scone.
But it's a cookie exchange or scone exchange.
Anyway, we've gone on for about 8 minutes just on a cookie exchange with such vain people. Anyway, do let us know what if you have any ideas for us. And if you do think my idea is wonderful, please tell Grace that tell Grace that she must come around. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get on to the reading. We are reading chapters 12 through...
No. 13. It should be. It was through 12. Yes.
No, it was 2:12.
No, it was through 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I was going to say, we haven't read this yet, but yes, we have. Okay, so we are reading chapters
13 through 15.
15, yes. I've got to get better at these Roman numerals, though. Really, just like throwing me off for some reason. Yes. So, chapter 13. Either or. The few words which Marguerite Blakeney had managed to read on the half-scorched piece of paper seemed literally to be the words of fate. Start myself tomorrow. This she had read quite distinctly. Then came a blur caused by the smoke of the candle, which obliterated the next few words, but right at the bottom there was another sentence, which was now standing clearly and distinctly, like letters of fire, before her mental vision. If you wish to speak to me again, I shall be in this supper-room at 1 o'clock precisely. The whole was signed with a hastily scrawled little device, a tiny star-shaped flower, which had become so familiar to her. 1 o'clock precisely. It was now close upon 11. The last minuet was being danced, with Sir Andrew Ffoulkes and beautiful Lady Blakeney leading the couples through its delicate and intricate figures. Close upon 11. The hands of the handsome Louis XV clock upon its ormolu bracket seemed to move along with maddening rapidity. 2 hours more, and her fate and that of Armand would be sealed. In 2 hours she must make up her mind whether she will keep the knowledge so cunningly gained to herself, and leave her brother to his fate, or whether she will wilfully betray a brave man, whose life was devoted to his fellow men, who was noble, generous, and above all unsuspecting. It seemed a horrible thing to do, but then there was Armand, too, who was brave and noble, and Armand, too, was unsuspecting. And Armand loved her, would have willingly trusted his life in her hands, and now, when she could save him from death, she hesitated. Oh, it was monstrous. Her brother's kind, gentle face, so full of love for her, seemed to be looking reproachfully at her. You might have saved me, Margot, he seemed to say to her, and you chose the life of a stranger, a man you do not know, whom you have never seen, preferred that he should be safe, whilst you sent me to the guillotine. All these conflicting thoughts raged through Marguerite's brain, while with a smile upon her lips she glided through the graceful mazes of the minuet. Oh, I like that. The graceful mazes of the minuet. What?
Nothing. With soft, languid tones. This reminds me.
What is that from?
Anakin Gables.
Oh, yes.
Whatever.
Dark, languid tones.
Pardon me.
She fell into the folds of his cloak. She noted with that. I remember watching that and thinking, like, this is ridiculous what she's writing.
Ridiculous?
No, I said, should I say that? I meant ridiculous what she's saying, what she's writing about. It's like, no wonder Gilbert said mumbo jumbo. Score 1 for Gilbert. Anyway, all these conflicting thoughts raged through Marguerite's brain, while with a smile upon her lips she glided through the graceful mazes of the minuet. She noted with that acute sense of hers that she had succeeded in completely allaying Sir Andrew's fears. Her self-control had been absolutely perfect. She was a finer actress at this moment and throughout the whole of this minuet than she had ever been upon the boards of the Comédie Française. Mm-hmm. But then a beloved brother's life had not depended upon her histrionic powers. She was too clever to overdo her part, and made no further allusions to the supposed billet doux, which had caused Sir Andrew Ffoulkes such an agonizing 5 minutes. She watched his anxiety melting away under her sunny smile, and soon perceived that whatever doubt may have crossed his mind at the moment, she had, for the time the last bars of the minuet had been to play, succeeded in completely dispelling it.
Slow down.
He never realized in what a fever of excitement she was, what effort it cost her to keep up a constant ripple of banal conversation. When the minuet was over, she asked Sir Andrew to take her into the next room. "I have promised to go down to supper with His Royal Highness," she said. "But before we part, tell me, am I forgiven?" "Forgiven?" "Yes. Confess, I gave you a fright just now. But remember, I am not an Englishwoman, and I do not look upon the exchanging of billets doux as a crime, and I vow I will not tell my little Suzanne. But now, tell me, shall I welcome you to my water party on Wednesday?" "I am not sure, Lady Blakeney," he replied evasively. "I may have to leave London tomorrow." "I would not do that if I were you," she said earnestly. Then, seeing the anxious look once more reappearing in his eyes, she added gaily, "No one can throw a ball better than you can, Sir Andrew. We should so miss you on the bowling green." He had led her across the room to one beyond, where already His Royal Highness was waiting for the beautiful Lady Blakeney. "Madame, supper awaits us," said the prince, offering his arm to Marguerite, "and I am full of hope. The goddess Fortune has frowned so persistently on me at hazard, that I look with confidence for the smile of the goddess of beauty." "Your Highness has been unfortunate at the card tables?" asked Marguerite as he took the prince's arm. "Ah, most unfortunate. Blakeney, not content with being the richest among my father's subjects, has also the most outrageous luck. By the way, where is that inimitable wit? I vow, madam, that this life would be but a dreary desert without your smiles and his sallies." Chapter 14. 1 o'clock precisely. Supper had been extremely gay. All those present declared that never had Lady Blakeney been more adorable, nor that idiot Sir Percy more amusing. His Royal Highness had laughed until the tears streamed down his cheeks at Blakeney's foolish yet funny repartees. His doggerel verse, "We seek him here, we seek him there," etc., was sung to the tune of "Ho, Merry Britons," and to the accompaniment of glasses knocked loudly against the table. Lord Grenville, moreover, had a most perfect cook. Some wags asserted that he was a scion of the old French noblesse, who had lost his fortune, and had come to seek it in the cuisine of the Foreign Office. Marguerite Blakeney was in her most brilliant mood, and surely not a soul in that crowded supper-room had even an inkling of the terrible struggle which was raging within her heart. The clock was ticking so mercilessly on, it was long past midnight, and even the Prince of Wales was thinking of leaving the supper-table. Within the next half-hour, the destinies of two brave men would be pitted against one another, the dearly beloved brother and he, the unknown hero. Marguerite had not tried to see Champollion during this last hour. She knew that his keen fox-like eyes would terrify her at once, and incline the balance of her decision towards Armand. Whilst she did not see him, there still lingered in her heart of hearts a vague and undefined hope that something would occur, something big and enormous and epoch-making, which would shift from her young, weak shoulders this terrible burden of responsibility of having to choose between two such cruel alternatives. But the minutes ticked on with that dull monotony which they invariably seem to assume when our very nerves ache with their incessant ticking. After supper, dancing was resumed. His Royal Highness had left, and there was general talk of departing among the older guests. The young ones were indefatigable, and had started on a new gavotte, which would fill the next quarter of an hour. Marguerite did not feel equal to another dance. There is a limit to the most enduring self-control. Escorted by a cabinet minister, she had once more found her way to the tiny boudoir, still the most deserted among all the rooms. She knew that Chauvelin must be lying in wait for her somewhere, ready to seize the first possible opportunity for a tete-a-tete. His eyes had met hers for a moment after the supper minuet, and she knew that the keen diplomatist, with those searching pale eyes of his, had divined that her work was accomplished. Fate had willed it so. Marguerite, torn by the most terrible conflict heart of a woman can ever know.
Conflicted heart?
Okay, I think this is a typo. Marguerite, torn by the most terrible conflicted heart that a woman can ever know, had resigned herself to its decrees. Does that make sense?
Say it again?
Marguerite, torn by the most terrible conflicted heart a woman can ever know, had resigned herself to its decrees.
Yeah.
But Armand must be saved at any cost. He, first of all, for he was her brother, had been mother, father, friend to her ever since she, a tiny babe, had lost both of her parents. To think of Armand dying a traitor's death on the guillotine was too hard even to dwell upon, impossible, in fact. That could never be, never. As for the strains of the hero, well, there, let fate decide. Marguerite would redeem her brother's life at the hands of the relentless enemy, then let that cunning Scarlet Pimpernel extricate himself after that. Perhaps vaguely Marguerite hoped that the daring plotter, who for so many months had baffled an army of spies, would still manage to evade Chauvelin and remain immune to the end. She thought of all this as she sat listening to the witty discourse of the cabinet minister, who no doubt felt that he had found in Lady Blakeney a most perfect listener. Suddenly she saw the keen, fox-like face of Chauvelin peeping through the curtained doorway. "Lord Fancourt," she said to the minister, "will you do me a service?" "I am entirely at your ladyship's service," he replied gallantly. "Will you see if my husband is still in the card-room? And if he is, will you tell him that I am very tired and would be glad to go home soon?" The commands of a beautiful woman are binding on all mankind, even on cabinet ministers. Lord Fancourt appeared to obey instantly. "I do not like to leave your ladyship alone," he said. "Never fear, I shall be quite safe here, and, I think, undisturbed. But I am really tired. You know Sir Percy will drive back to Richmond. It is a long way, and we shall not, and we do not hurry, get home before daybreak." Lord Fancourt had perforce to go. The moment he had disappeared, Chauvelin slipped into the room, and the next instant stood calm and impassive by her side. "You have news for me?" he said. An icy mantle seemed to have suddenly settled round Marguerite's shoulders. Though her cheeks glowed with fire, she felt chilled and numbed. "Oh, Armand, will you ever know the terrible sacrifice of pride, of dignity, of womanliness a devoted sister is making for your sake?" "Nothing of importance," she said, staring mechanically before her, "but it might prove a clue. I can try, no matter how, to detect Sir Andrew Ffoulkes in the very act of burning up paper at one of these candles in this very room. That paper I succeeded in holding between my fingers for the space of 2 minutes, and to cast my eye on it for that of 10 seconds. "Time enough to learn its contents?" asked Chauvelin quietly. She nodded. Then she continued in the same even, mechanical tone of voice. "In the corner of the paper there was the usual rough device of a small star-shaped flower. Above it I read 2 lines. Everything else was scorched and blackened by the flame. And what were those 2 lines?" Her throat seemed suddenly to have contracted. For an instant she felt that she could not speak the words which might send a brave man to his death. "It is lucky that the whole paper was not burned," said Chauvelin with dry sarcasm, "for it might have fared ill with Armand St-Just. What were the 2 lines, citizen?" "One was, 'I stop myself tomorrow,'" she said quietly. "The other, 'If you wish to speak to me, I shall be in the supper-room at 1 o'clock precisely.'" Chauvelin looked up at the clock just above the mantelpiece. "Then I have plenty of time," he said placidly. "What are you going to do?" she asked. She was pale as a statue. Her hands were icy cold. Her head and heart throbbed with the awful strain upon her nerves. Oh, this was cruel, cruel! What had she done to deserve all of this? Her choice was made. Had she done a vile action, or one that was sublime? The recording angel who writes in the book of gold alone could give an answer. "What are you going to do?" she repeated mechanically. "Oh, nothing for the present. After that it will depend." "On what?" "On whom I shall see in the supper-room at 1 o'clock precisely." "You will see the Scarlet Pimpernel, of course, but you do not know him." "No, but I shall presently. Sir Andrew will have warned him." "I think not." "When you parted from him after the minuet, he stood and watched you for a moment or 2 with a look which gave me to understand that something had happened between you. It was only natural, was it not, that I should make a shrewd guess as to the nature of that something. I thereupon engaged the young gallant in a long and animated conversation. We discussed Herr Gluck's singular success in London until a lady claimed his arm for supper. Since then, I did not lose sight of him through supper. When we all came upstairs then, Lady Portales buttonholed him and started on the subject of pretty Mill, Suzanne de Tournay. I knew he would not move until Lady Portales had exhausted the subject, which will not be for another quarter of an hour at least, and it is 5 minutes to 1 now. He was prepared to go, and went up to the doorway, where, drawing aside the curtain, He stood for a moment, pointing out to Marguerite the distant figure of Sir Andrew Ffoulkes in close conversation with Lady Portalis. "I think," he said with a triumphant smile, "that I may safely expect to find the person I seek in the dining room, fair lady. There may be more than one. Whoever is there, as the clock strikes 1, will be shadowed by one of my men. Of these, 1 or perhaps 2 or even 3 will leave for France tomorrow. One of these will be the Scarlet Pimpernel." "Yes, and?" "I also, fair lady, will leave for France tomorrow. The papers found at Dover upon the person of Sir Andrew Ffoulkes speak of the neighbourhood of Calais, of an inn which I know well, called Le Chagris, of a lonely place somewhere on the coast, the Pierre Blanchard's hut, which I must endeavour to find. All these places are given as the point where this meddlesome Englishman has hidden the traitor de Tournay and others to meet his emissaries. But it seems that he's decided not to send his emissaries, that he will start himself tomorrow. Now, one of these persons, whom I shall see anon in the supper-room, will be journeying to Calais, and I shall follow that person until I have tracked him to where these fugitive aristocrats await him. But that person, fair lady, will be the man whom I have sought for nearly a year, the man whose energy has outdone me, whose ingenuity has baffled me, whose audacity has set me wondering, yes, me, who have seen a trick or two in my time, the mysterious and elusive Scarlet Pimpernel. And Armand?" she pleaded. "Have I ever broken my word? I promised you that the day the Scarlet Pimpernel and I start for France, I will send you that imprudent letter of his, by special courier. More than that, I will pledge you the word of France, that the day I lay hands on that meddlesome Englishman, Saint-Just will be here in England, safe in the arms of his charming sister." And with a deep and elaborate bow and another look at the clock, Chauvelin glided out of the room. It seemed to Marguerite that through all the noise, all the din of music, the dancing and laughter, she could hear his cat-like tread, gliding through the vast reception-rooms, that she could hear him go down the massive staircase, reach the dining-room, and open the door. Fate had decided, had made her speak, had made her do a vile and abominable thing, for the sake of the brother she loved. She lay back in her chair, passive and still, seeing the figure of her relentless enemy ever present before her aching eyes. When Chauvelin reached the supper-room, it was quite deserted. It had that woebegone, forsaken, tar-dry appearance which reminds one so much of a ball-dress the morning after. Half-empty glasses littered the table, and folded napkins lay about the chairs, turned towards one another in groups of 2s and 3s, seemed like the seats of ghosts in close conversation with one another. There were sets of 2 chairs very close to one another in the far corners of the room, which spoke of recent whispered flirtations over cold game pie and champagne. There were sets of 3 and 4 chairs that recalled pleasant animated discussions over the latest scandal. There were chairs straight up in a row that still looked starchy, critical, acid, like antiquated dowagers. There were a few isolated single chairs close to the table that spoke of gourmands intent on the most recherche dishes, and others overturned on the floor that spoke volumes on the subject of my Lord Grenville's cellars. Oh dear. It was a ghost-like replica, in fact, of that fashionable gathering upstairs, a ghost that haunts every house where balls and good suppers are given, a picture drawn with white chalk on grey cardboard, dull and colourless, now that the bright silk dresses and gorgeously embroidered coats were no longer there to fill in the foreground, and now that the candles flickered sleepily in their sockets. Chauvelin smiled benignly, and rubbing his long, thin hands together, he looked round the deserted supper-room, whence even the last flunky had retired in order to join his friends in the hall below. All was silence in the dimly lighted room, whilst the sound of the gavotte, the hum of distant talk and laughter, and the rumble of an occasional coach outside only seemed to reach this palace of the Sleeping Beauty, as the murmur of some flitting spooks far away.
Fleeting.
No, flitting. We flit, we float. It all looked so peaceful, so luxurious, and so still that the keenest observer, a veritable prophet, could never have guessed that at this present moment that deserted supper-room was nothing but a trap laid for the capture of the most cunning and audacious plotter whose stirring times had ever seen. Chauvelin pondered and tried to peer into the immediate future. What would this man be like? whom he and the leaders of a whole revolution had sworn to bring to his death. Everything about him was weird and mysterious. His personality, which he had so cunningly concealed, the power he wielded over 19 English gentlemen, who seemed to obey his every command blindly and enthusiastically, the passionate love and submission he had roused in his little trained band, and above all his marvelous audacity and boundless impudence, which had caused him to beard his most implacable enemies within the very walls of Paris. No wonder that in France the sobriquet of the mysterious Englishman roused in the people a superstitious shudder. Chauvelin himself, as he gazed round the deserted room where presently the weird hero would appear, felt a strange feeling of awe creeping all down his spine. But his plans were well laid. He felt sure that this Pimpernel had not been warned, and felt equally sure that Marguerite Blakeney had not played him false. If she had, a cruel look that would have made her shudder gleamed in Chauvelin's keen, pale eyes. If she had played him a trick, Armand St-Just would suffer the extreme penalty. But no, of course she had not played him false. Fortunately, the supper room was deserted. This would make Chauvelin's task all the easier, when presently that unsuspecting enigma would enter it alone. No one was here now save Chauvelin himself. Stay, as he surveyed with a satisfied smile the solitude of the room, the cunning agent of the French government became aware of the peaceful, monotonous breathing of some one of my Lord Grenville's guests, who no doubt had supped both wisely and well, and was enjoying a quiet sleep away from the din of the dancing above. Chauvelin looked around once more, and there in the corner of a sofa, in the dark angle of the room, his mouth open, his eyes shut, the sweet sounds of peaceful slumbers proceeding from his nostrils, reclined the gorgeously appalled, long-limbed husband of the cleverest woman in Europe. Chauvelin looked at him as he lay there, placid, unconscious, at peace with all the world and himself, after the best of suppers, and a smile which was almost one of pity softened for a moment the hard lines of the Frenchman's face and the sarcastic twinkle of his pale eyes. Evidently, the slumberer, deep in dreamless sleep, would not interfere with Chauvelin's trap for catching that cunning Pimpernel. Again he rubbed his hands together, and following the example of Sir Percy Blakeney, he too stretched himself out in the corner of another sofa, shut his eyes, opened his mouth, and gave forth sounds of peaceful breathing, and waited. Right. Grace.
Can we keep going? Oh, I will here.
I will. Alright. Chapter 15. Doubt. Margaret Blakeney had watched the slight sable-clad figure of Chauvelin as he worked his way through the ballroom. Then, perforce, she had to wait while her nerves tingled with excitement. Listless, she sat in the small, still deserted boudoir, looking out through the curtained doorway on the dancing couples beyond, looking at them, yet seeing nothing, hearing the music, yet conscious of naught, save a feeling of expectancy, of anxious, weary waiting. Her mind conjured up before her the vision of what was perhaps at this very moment passing downstairs. The half-deserted dining room, the fateful hour, Chauvelin on the watch. Then, precise to the moment, the entrance of a man, he, the Scarlet Pimpernel, the mysterious leader who to Marguerite had become almost unreal, so strange, so weird was this hidden identity. She wished she were in the supper-room too, at this moment, watching him as he entered. She knew that her woman's penetration would at once recognize in the stranger's face, whoever he might be, that strong individuality which belongs to a leader of men, to a hero, to the mighty, high-soaring eagle, whose daring wings were becoming entangled in the ferret's trap.
The ferret's trap!
Womanlike, she thought of him with unmixed sadness. The irony of that fate seemed so cruel, which allowed the fearless lion to succumb to the gnawing of a rat. Had Armand's life had not been at stake. Faith, your ladyship must have thought me very remiss, said a voice suddenly close to her elbow. I had a deal of difficulty in delivering your message, for I could not find Blakeney anywhere at first. Marguerite had forgotten all about her husband, and her message to him, his very name, as spoken by Lord Fancourt, sounded strange and unfamiliar to her, so completely had she in the last 5 minutes lived her odd life, in the Rue de Richelieu again, with Armand always near to her to love and protect her, to guard her from the many subtle intrigues which were forever raging in Paris in those days. I did find him at last, continued Lord Fancourt, and gave him your message. He said that he would give orders at once for the horses to be put on. Ah, she said, still very absently, you found my husband and gave him my message. Yes, he was in the dining room fast asleep. I could not manage to wake him up at first. Thank you very much, she said mechanically, trying to collect her thoughts. Will your ladyship honour me with a contredanse until your coach is ready? Said Lord Fancourt. No, I thank you, my lord, but, and you will forgive me, I really am too tired, and the heat in the ballroom has become oppressive. The conservatory is deliciously cool. Let me take you there, and then get you something. You seem ailing, Lady Blakeney. I am only very tired, she repeated wearily, as she allowed Lord Fancourt to lead her where subdued lights and green plants lent coolness to the air. He got her a chair, into which she sank. This long interview of waiting was intolerable. What did not Chauvelin come and tell her the result of his watch? Why did not Chauvelin come and tell her the result of his watch? Lord Fancourt was very attentive. She scarcely heard what he said, and suddenly startled him by asking abruptly, Lord Fancourt, did you perceive who was in the dining room just now besides Sir Percy Blakeney? Only the agent of the French government, M. Chauvelin, equally fast asleep in another corner, he said. Why does your ladyship ask? I know not. Did you notice the time when you were there? It must have been about 5 or 10 minutes past 1. I wonder what your ladyship is thinking about, he added, for evidently the fair lady's thoughts were very far away, and she had not been listening to his intellectual conversation. But indeed her thoughts were not very far away, only one story below, in the same house, in the dining room where sat Chauvelin still on the watch. Had he failed? For one instant that possibility rose before her as a hope. The hope that the Scarlet Pimpernel had been warned by Sir Andrew, and that Chauvelin's trap had failed to catch his bird. But that hope soon gave way to fear. Had he failed? But then Armand! Lord Fancourt had given up talking, since he found that he had no listener. He wanted an opportunity for slipping away, for sitting opposite to a lady, however fair, who is evidently not heeding the most vigorous efforts made for entertainment, is not exhilarating, even to a cabinet minister. Shall I find out if your ladyship's coach is ready? He said at last, tentatively. Oh, thank you, if you would be so kind. I fear I am but sorry company, but I am really tired, and perhaps would be best alone. She had been longing to be rid of him, for she hoped that, like the fox he so resembled, Chauvelin would be prowling round, thinking to find her alone. But Lord Fancourt went, and still Chauvelin did not come. Oh, what had happened? She felt Armand's fate trembling in the balance, and she feared now, with a deadly fear, that Chauvelin had failed, and that the mysterious Scarlet Pimpernel had proved elusive once more. Then she knew that she need hope for no pity, no mercy from him. He had pronounced his either-or, and nothing less would content him. He was very spiteful, and would affect the belief that she had wilfully misled him, and having failed to trap the eagle once again, his revengeful mind would be content with the humble prey Armand. Still, yet she had done her best, and she had strained every nerve for Armand's sake. She could not bear to think that all had failed. She could not sit still. She wanted to go and hear the worst at once. She wanted even that Chauvelin had not come, to vent his wrath and satire upon her. Lord Grenville himself came presently to tell her that her coach was ready, and that Sir Percy was already waiting for her, ribbons in hand. Marguerite said farewell to her distinguished host. Many of her friends stopped her as she crossed the rooms to talk to her and exchange pleasant au revoirs. The minister only took final leave of beautiful Lady Blakeney at the top of the stairs below. On the landing, a veritable army of gallant gentlemen were waiting to bid good-bye to the Queen of Beauty and Fashion, whilst outside, under the massive portico, Sir Percy's magnificent bays were impatiently pawing the ground. At the top of the stairs, just after she had taken final leave of her host, she suddenly saw Chauvelin. He was coming up the stairs slowly and rubbing his thin hands very softly together.
Oh dear.
There was a curious look on his mobile face, partly amused and wholly puzzled, and as his keen eyes met Marguerite's, they became strangely sarcastic. M. Chauvelin, she said, as he stopped on the top of the stairs, bowing elaborately before her. My coach is outside. May I claim your arm? As gallant as ever, she offered her his arm and led her downstairs. The crowd was very great. Some of the minister's guests were departing. Others were leaning against the banisters, watching the throng as it filed up and down the wide staircase. Chauvelin, she said at last desperately, I must know what has happened. What has happened, dear lady? He said with affected surprise. Where? When? You are torturing me, Chauvelin. I have helped you tonight. Surely I have the right to know. What happened in the dining room at 1 o'clock just now? She spoke in a whisper, trusting in the general hubbub of the crowds. Her words would remain unheeded by all, save the men at her side. Quiet and peace reigned supreme, fair lady. At that hour I was asleep in the corner of one sofa, and one Percy Blakeney in another. Nobody came into the room at all? Nobody. Then we have failed, you and I. Yes, we have failed. Perhaps. But Armand, she repeated. Armand says just, chances hang on a thread. Pray heaven, dear lady, that thread may not snap. Chauvelin, I worked for you sincerely, earnestly. I remember my promise, he said quietly. The day that the Scarlet Pimpernel and I meet on French soil, Saint Just will be in the arms of his charming sister. Which means that a brave man's blood will be on my hands, she said with a shudder. His blood, or that of your brother. Surely, at the present moment, you must hope, as I do, that the enigmatical Scarlet Pimpernel will start for Calais today. I am only conscious of one hope, citizen, and that is, that Satan, your master, will have need of you elsewhere before the sun rises today. You flatter me, citizen. She had detained him for a while, midway down the stairs, trying to get at the thoughts which lay beyond that thin fox-like mask. But Chauvelin remained urbane, sarcastic, mysterious, not a line betrayed to the poor anxious woman whether she need fear or whether she dared to hope. Downstairs on the landing she was soon surrounded. Lady Blakeney never stepped from any house into her coach without any escort of fluttering human moths around the dazzling light of her beauty. But before she finally turned away from Chauvelin, she held out a tiny hand to him, with that pretty gesture of childish appeal which was so essentially her own. Give me some hope, my little Chauvelin, she pleaded. With perfect gallantry he bowed over that tiny hand, which looked so dainty and white through the delicately transparent black lace mitten, and kissed the tips of the rosy fingers. Pray heaven that the thread may not snap, he repeated with his enigmatic smile. Stepping aside, he allowed the moths to flutter more closely round the candle, and the brilliant throng to the jeunesse dorée, eagerly attentive to Lady Blakeney's every movement, hid the key. And stepping aside, he allowed the moths to flutter more closely round the candle. The brilliant throng of the jeunesse dorée, eagerly attentive to Lady Blakeney's every movement, hid the keen, fox-like face from her view.
My. How oppressive that must be. To be like the center of attention like that and never beat me. You can't even walk out without people saying goodbye to you like that. And like you said, the moths of the candle. That's ugh. And I wonder if she feels you have to have something witty to say or whatever, you know, or
well, it's kind of like being a celebrity nowadays.
I guess, but just how oppressive that must be. I would hate to go out. That just shows my character though. Personality, really.
Well, she sounds like she likes the attention. Although it's not like she's all about the attention either. But
so anybody, I'm sure, those who like attention, or people at least like extroverts and introverts, still need. I'm sure they get tired of it eventually, right? You're one. Let's say yes now.
What?
You're one.
I'm one what?
An extrovert. Let's say yes now. On the subject.
Well, I don't like to be the center of attention. So yeah, I would not like that. I would feel like you said pressured to say something, or pressured to I don't know, show them a good time, or you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly how to say it, but feel pressured to entertain them, or there would be an expectation for what I would say or how I would treat them or whatever, Leave me alone. So, yes, that's quite it. Well, I don't know if they're all like, anyway. That Chauvelin is horrible.
Yes, where it's way really, really devious.
I think that Chauvelin is getting an idea in his head.
Yes. But it said with he came up the stairs with
Puzzled and curiosity.
yes, but puzzlement. No, it wasn't curiosity. It was something with complete puzzlement and something else. Wait, what was it?
Okay. He was coming up the stairs slowly and rubbing his thin hands very softly together. That's bad sign, number one. Or he's thinking. Maybe it's how he thinks. There was a curious look on his mobile face, partly amused and wholly puzzled.
Partly amused and wholly puzzled.
Exactly.
Wholly puzzled. Thank heavens for that. But still.
And as his keen eyes met Marguerite's, they became strangely sarcastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he's getting an idea in his head. As I said before, I'd have to stop right here. Always never. Yes. This just makes such a good.
She's a really good writer. Not that we didn't know that before, but she's like really good at.
It's such a good story.
I know.
It just. You know, they're going to be, you know, in the carriage together, her and Sir Percy next, and she's going to be so, you know, feeling so miserable, and she needs him to be there for her, and he's not, and...
Well, he is, if you let him.
Well, I guess.
I think he totally would be there for her, if she allowed that she needed him, or even wanted him. Right now, as it is, she just makes fun of him.
Yes. But... she was going to go tell him, but of her troubles, but he didn't seem as if he would be, helpful because he was acting so ridiculous.
Right, but she could still, even if he is being ridiculous, she could still tell him about it.
Yeah.
Oh dear. My mind.
They could have done so much better.
Okay, stop talking about the movie.
Although there is somewhat of it, it's not enough. You know, in the movie they seem more to put the focus on him than they do on her.
You're really not hearing much about him. How back?
No. I'm saying in the movie.
I know.
Don't they put more emphasis on, or they kind of follow him more than they do her?
Yeah, I just said that. And in this one, she's the main character,
Yeah.
not Sir Percy.
Which is a very good way to do it, if you ask me. This is the
Which
way, the original, how they put more emphasis on her and less on him.
Right, because
That-
you don't know.
Exactly.
Because she's in the dark.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to do it. Because then, in the end, we'll see what happens in the end, you know? In the other one, you're just waiting for the inevitable to happen.
Right. Yeah, and this way you're discovering the story
Exactly.
along with her. You don't know it ahead of time.
Exactly. It's really interesting how they can just flow from one person to the other so well, from one person's perspective to the other. You know, first, you know, we have, you know, where Marguerite's, you know, doing her thing with Sir Andrew, and then it goes on to, you know, other things, and then Chauvelin, now it's from his perspective, all within the same chapter.
Right.
You know, some writers have a chapter from one person's perspective, and then another character's perspective for the next, you know, and they divide it that way, or they just have they separate it, they separate it within, you know, the chapter from, you know, just, you know, from paragraph to, or from section to section, they just separate it somehow with, like, 3 dots, or whatever they call it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And this one, it's so very fluid.
Yeah.
But
It's
not
not
confusing.
not at all confusing.
Yeah. Yes.
I wonder if she wrote any more books that aren't Scarlet Pimpernel. I don't know if it's saying there now.
Let's see. I don't see that. No. I don't see it in this one.
I don't think the prince is in on it.
You don't?
Well, maybe he is.
I think he is.
But he seems to be rather...
ridiculous?
Yeah.
Maybe he's that way on purpose.
Maybe.
the fact that he laughed louder than anyone else in that joke that the person made, I think that totally speaks. Makes me think of something. Yeah. Yes, I think he is. So. Right. Trying to think what else. You know, it's interesting. You're married, but yet you dance with anybody, and you know Lord Fancourt is entertaining you. You know,
That guy was like, could not take a hint.
Lord Fancourt,
Yeah.
or whatever his name was. No, but isn't that an interesting way of life? You know, you can dance. You're married, but you can still be entertained by all these different gentlemen.
Maybe
It's very odd.
Maybe the sense of propriety, but the sense of, I don't know, morals were high. Well, the morals weren't that well, or perceived to be very high back then, at least. So they wouldn't have thought anything would come of it, or whatever. Or I don't know.
I don't know. Interesting. Well, these people party up late into the night,
Yeah.
into the morning, the next day.
Yeah. Well, notice I don't have to get up and go to work in the morning.
It's past 1 o'clock, and the older ones are leaving, and the younger ones are starting to guffaw.
But you know what's hilarious? That would last a quarter of an hour. How long is that? 15 minutes? Yeah, 15. Oh, it's not
Yeah.
that long.
15 minutes.
Still, that's a while.
And it's a long dance.
Yeah, really. Wait a minute. That would be us, though. Totally.
What?
Dancing into the evening. Into the early morning.
I don't know. I'd probably be
Probably.
crashing on the couch and speaking at that time. Or talking, you know, with people instead of that.
I don't think so. Well, it's not like you have to dance every dance.
No, but...
And I think how many people are at that event. It's not like probably a couple hundred or more. So you have plenty of people who are talking and who are dancing and who are not. Think of the poor musicians. My goodness, having to play that entire time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know what this makes me think of? This makes me think of... I know it's not quite the same thing. It makes me think of Black Beauty.
What?
Yeah, because do you remember how Black Beauty was... His good owner was a guy who was a cab driver. And, you know, how everyone's, you know, stay, wait for us, you know. And
Oh, right, yes.
we'll go in here and have a few drinks and then we'll be out, you know.
Mhm.
And it was like, you know, a cold, rainy night or whatever it was. And they were waiting forever for them. And that's, just think of these people that have to have the carriages out there, the drivers. The people had carriages and had drivers for their carriages. They had to wait outside all night, you know, practically, for people to be done and want to come home.
Mm. Yeah, well, like in the movie, it showed up. Was that? It's not some movie we watched. They show like all the drivers huddling around a fire and like having their own dances or whatever, laughing themselves.
Yeah.
Talking.
And it also makes you think of, remember the Philadelphia story? Philadelphia story? Yeah. Where all the chauffeurs, you know, in the cars have to wait for them all too outside, and you know, Jim Carrey goes outside, and then you know the guy's
Jim
asleep.
Carrey.
I'm sorry, not Jim Carrey. Wrong guy. Jimmy Stewart goes out to the car, and the guy's asleep. You know.
I don't remember that. But...
Poor people. They don't get paid enough.
Yeah. Well.
So
Their
yes.
job description.
Yeah. So that's quite a job. Of course you don't. Well, and then you have to take them out again during the day if they want to go out. But
Well, no, then back at home though, would the maids have to like stay up all night until they got home?
well, you read or watch movies and read books where they pretend they weren't sleeping when they come in. You know, just kind of like hurry up. Oh, you're here. Huh? Yeah, here you are. This, that. You remember Prudy Prudy and Judd on Poldark when they come home from the ball, whatever, and she hears them come in. They've already seen that they're asleep, and she hears Ross and Demelza come in, and then she says, "A letter came for you." That was hilarious. Yeah.
Poor servants.
Yes, indeed. Well, a good practice for, at least if you're chauffeuring during the daytime, would be to bring a book.
Mm-hmm.
To batter yourself.
Yeah. You know, this book, you know, it's not with the setting of Scarlet Pimpernel reminds me a lot of the Georgette Heyer books. If you guys have never read any of those, they're very fun.
You mentioned them the other week.
I did.
I think so.
Well, mentioning it again.
Or repeating yourself.
Some
say that's the beginning.
A lot of Georgette Heyer's characters, her male characters, remind me of Sir Percy. With his laziness and idiocy type thing, demeanor. But under that, then they have their they're very witty and such.
We are like just barely, I think, over halfway through the book. So, yes. Well, what do you all think? What have you thought of this week's chapters? Tell us what a wretch Scarlet is and how you agree with us on that subject. Tell us what you thought. What do you think Scarlet is thinking as far as his search for this Pimpernel?
Excuse me, can't stop yawning.
Let's see what else. Yes. How do you, for those of you that are reading this for the first time, how do you think this is going to end? Do you have any ideas? I'm trying to think. I kind of wish I'd read this. It would have been. Did you read this after you saw the movie?
After?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I skimmed through it and just read the end.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway. Yes. So, do tell us.
Yeah, 3 chapters a week. You know, it doesn't seem like much, but it's too slow for me, at least. I don't know about you. Maybe we should speed it up to like 4 chapters.
It already takes us like an hour to read and then discuss. But yeah.
What do you say? Should we put it up to 4 or 5 chapters, maybe?
5? Don't do 5.
Never mind, 4 chapters a week. You let us know, and we will see you all next week.